this tutorial, I'd like to talk a little bit about VR lighting. Is how to optimize light for VR. A couple of years ago, I made this very old tutorial. This is called Mobile Light Mobility and Optimization. It's really targeting to the mobile light, the mobile Quest VR light. In that tutorial, I mentioned you want to keep all the light as static, except the directional light as stationary. You can bake all the light, or we call it pre-compute all the light. So the performance will be better compared to not baking the light, right? So this is in the Quest 2 static lighting. And also, I made this new Excel just to explain a little bit. If you do go with the very conservative old school way to do the mobile VR, this is probably the setting you want to follow, such as forward render as ES anti-aliasing as MSAA. You want to turn on the instant stereo, you want to turn on the multi-view. You do not want to use HDR. You probably want to allow static lighting to be baked. So these are the settings in a project setting. So for instance, if I open one of the old project, this is a VR template by default. So you can see in the render settings, they pretty much followed this practice, especially in the VR setting. You can see the forward render is checked, and also the stereo, mobile HDR, mobile multi-view is followed my note right here. Okay, and also in this case, you do not have Lumen turned on because Lumen is quite expensive for mobile VR. Okay, so these are the settings. In our project though, since we are not packaging the project into Quest as a standalone, we are mainly do this in a PC with a screen. So this is the setting we actually use. We actually using the Lumen for global illumination. We use Lumen for reflections. We do have HDR turned on. And forward render is off, right? So now if I go ahead, open our project, if you recall, this is a project we are currently working on, and you can see in the project settings, in the render settings, you can see the VR session, right? We do not using the stereo, but we turn on the HDR, and also you can see the forward render is off, right? So this is all good, for non-VR, for VR, right? It's very clear, black and white. However, I think today we'll talk a little bit about another subject, is the PC VR. Since Unreal Engine 5.2, the Lumen render in PC VR became actually quite stable. It used to crash a lot, so I think it's maybe worth a little bit time to talk about the PC VR. In this situation, maybe we can turn on the Lumen, which is expensive, right, in VR, but we got this really nice lighting. As a sacrifice, you will see the low frame rate for sure. We also have the HDR turned on for the PC VR. So these are the kind of hybrid between these two. And another technique I want to mention is the scalability. This is a way you can dial down the quality of your rendering in order to get a better frame rate. So we'll talk a little bit. Scalability 0 means you don't get shadows, you don't get reflections, you don't really get any benefit from Lumen. However, if you dial up the scalability levels to 2 or 3, then you get a little bit nicer global illumination impact, visual kind of quality from Lumen. Okay, so this is something we're gonna talk more today. So before I start this, I just want to show you in my original project, we kind of followed in the project setting like this. However, in the mobile VR setting, if you do want to do a hybrid, there's a way you can actually temporarily disable the Lumen in a particular level, and also you can do static lighting. Since in this project I already turned on the allow static setting to be yes. So this one actually can be yes as well. Okay, so let's go back there to our project. I think it's a little bit confusing if I don't show you. So first, this is a project of my level 1 min, right? So in this level, I create a post-process volume. You can refer to my previous tutorial if you have no idea what it is. So in general, this will allow me to control the type of rendering per level, right? So first thing I do is in a bound, I checked this infinite extent, okay? So it will kick in. Then in the global illumination, I have this lumen right now is on, but later I'm gonna turn off just to show you the difference. Okay. And also I have reflection, right? Right now is also lumen. So this is all on as lumen, right? So now this is quite expensive, right? So if I run this in VR, I just want to show you how this looks like. By the way, when you are in the VR, you can using the command line turn on the console command. Then you can type stat. GPU is basically the green one I just showed you. You can also do stat FPS, first frame per second. So let's do that one more time since I just turned it off. Right, it's just a way you can see right now is about 50 frames per second on the screen. And you have these really nice shadows, reflections, right? This is a golden color material from the scene. So now if I type scale ability, right? So if I type scale ability level at 0, you see what happened? You lost reflection, you lost lighting. And I can type scale ability as 2, so you got this shadow reflection back. So this is just a different way you can turn on, turn off this rendering quality in order to get a better rendering frame rate. So right now it's about 50. I think it's pretty good. All right, so this is the lumen rendering. Not too bad in the PC VR, but definitely when you publish this to a mobile VR, you don't want to keep the lumen on like this fashion. So in that case, I will go to my post-processing, right? And then I will go to my global illumination, and I will change my lumen to none. So basically, you see the lighting does not carry on the bouncing light from the lumens. Same thing in the reflection. I will turn off the lumen reflection to none, right? So there's no lumen reflections. If you do have reflective material, so the question is where the reflection will come from, right? So in this case, you want to create a reflection probe. So here, if you go to the place actors and type reflection, you can do sphere, planar, box. I will do sphere. So basically, this sphere represents this kind of captured globe, which will pre-compute all the reflections. So if you do have this metal material, this will be actually pre-computed through this reflective sphere. So if I delete that sphere, you see the gold material, right? This is the gold material. It lost reflections. So reflection, let me just create a new one. Reflection sphere will really be the one you can simulate the reflection. It's not a lumen reflection, so it's not super accurate. Once you bring this in, you probably want to build. Then you choose build reflection captures. You will pre-compute this. Okay, so that's about reflection. Then let's talk a little bit about lighting. So here I have point light 1, 2, 3, right? So if I'm not using lumen anymore, you should switch this back to static. I think the original one, if I use lumen, this could be movable or stationary. I think movable would be the preferred way. But I will change all the point light to static. I also change my directional light to stationary. I change my skylight to static. So this will be able to baked into the light map. Then I'm going to build. I will build the lighting. Right. Sounds like a lot of stuff, but the benefit is you are able to optimize everything based on the mobile VR's pre-reference. So here, if I go ahead, build a light, you can pre-compute all the lighting, all the shadow into light map. This will take a few minutes, depends on the complexity of your level, but it's totally worth it because during the runtime, you don't really compute the lighting anymore. And you can tell because I have the light with a different color. This one is a little bit green. This one is a little bit purple. So you have a little bit, variations on the shadow. So in this case, you want to save all. Okay. So you can see the lighting information is actually saved into this build data. It's accompanied with the level. Right. In some case, when we push this to the GitHub and when you download, this file might not be the current version, so you probably want to recompute the lighting. In some situation, just rebuild the light. You should be fine. I also want to explain a little bit what happened when you build a light. If you go to the word settings, you should see there's a section called light map at the bottom, right here. Or you can just type light, right? Light maps, so right here. So light maps is actually the baked version of your light. So you have 12 light maps in this level. If I take a look at these light maps, right? I think that's okay. So here's the 12 light maps. You can actually see this baked light map right here. They are basically baked into UVs. If you do want to recompute, here you can check force no pre-computed lighting. So what happened is Unreal will remove all the all the pre-baked light. Then you can rebake again. So this is one way you can kind of purge the lighting from the current bake. You can also control the resolution of your bake. So in some case, for example, I have this ground, right? It's like a plan. And here, if I go to details and type light map, you can see by default I'm using the current resolution, which is 128. But for some reason, if you think, hey, I want this shadow be a little bit sharper, you can check. Then you can give a little bit higher resolution, maybe 256. So this will be double the original resolution of shadows. And then you probably have to rebuild the lighting. Okay, so the ground will have a little bit higher resolution to compute the shadows. This will take longer time for sure. Each time you increase the number, you might not really see a big difference, but this is the resolution per object in the thing. You can also do. I think there are some ways you can preview the lighting, so you can see all the lighting, see how this light impact individual surface, right? Have colors, you can definitely see it. It's a really good way you can optimize your light. Reflections, this is all the reflective material. Okay, very useful. What else? You can also light complexity. I sometimes use it. If you see everything in the blue, that means it's good. But it's in the red or yellow, you probably want to pay attention. That means the light map probably is not good enough. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the light. So I covered a little bit on this static lighting. I will save all. Yeah, in my opinion, this is the best performance you can get just by switch the light to the static. So here, if I go to show frame per second, right? Where is it? Okay, so this is about 60. It's pretty high, and that's good. So let's go back, talk a little bit more. Let's close this. I go to the post process. Okay. In the post process, I will go ahead, go to the global illumination. Right now is none. Right. Also the reflection is none. But I'm fully kind of follow this approach. Right. There's no lumens, no lumen reflections. Okay. So if you are okay with this baked version, it's totally fine. But as I mentioned earlier, since Unreal 5.2, today you can actually afford to have lumen. So let's just compare the frame rate. Right now it's 60, right? So let's go ahead, turn on the global illumination. Can't tell. Okay, so I will change this to lumen. Right, you see the reflection became dark. Don't be panic. It's because reflection, we need to turn on the lumen as well. Okay, so this is lumen reflection, right? It's more accurate. Then I'm gonna change all the point light from static to dynamic, right? So basically the three lights, I change this to movable. Lumen will only interact with the movable lighting. So if you change it to static, you lost the interaction, right? Change them to movable. The same thing I will do for the directional light. I think right now it's a sunlight. I change this to movable. For the skylight, I change it to movable. Okay, so we have everything as the most expensive settings, right? You see the frame rate right now is 60. Don't be fooled. You have to play this in VR in order to see the final impact. So let me save all, and I will play. Okay. So if you pay attention to the frame rate right now, it's 40, right? It's not high at all. Yeah. If I look at from the headset, it takes a long time to load. It might crash. Mm, yeah. Let me cancel if I can. No, it won't allow me to cancel. Okay, but you got a point. This became quite expensive, right? Because I have dynamic lighting, I have lumen reflection. They both turned on. Sometimes the GPU power is not able to handle this in a very efficient way. Oh, now you got out. Okay, so you got a point about these two extreme settings, right? One is just take all the high resolution, lumen reflections, dynamic lighting. Another is change all the light to static, and then you're using the kind of mobile VR's conservative low quality. But if you do use PC VR, I think you can always dial down the scalability. So let's try this really quick. Maybe let's change all the directional light to stationary, skylight back to static. Right, these 3-point light, they are quite expensive. So let me keep them. Let's do another test. Right, this is still a pretty expensive setting. So I play, right, see all the lighting, frame rate is very low, 40. So now let's type command in console command. I will type scale ability. I will set this to 0. Okay, just for the demo. Immediately you see the frame rate jumped to 100, right? But the quality is not very good. Even it's lumen, quality is not good. So I will change scale ability. Let's do 2 here. Maybe I mistyped something. there we go, right? You see the frame rate dropped to 40, but you got this full reflection for shadow. You can also try other settings. Scale. So maybe choose 1. Yeah. So you got a little bit shadow. Definitely reflection doesn't look right. And you got 80 frames per second. Okay. So let me just take a look at it from my VR camera. Last time it got a little bit froze, but now it works fine. Where is my motion controller? Okay. Yeah, I think I'm pretty far away from the workable panels, but that's okay. So guys, you can see the frame rate is actually not too bad because I changed the scalabilities to 1, right? 1 is okay. Yeah. 2 probably is okay too. Let me just push a little bit. Scalability. I will do 2, okay? Might crash, we'll see. You see that immediately the quality is getting a little bit better. The frame rate dropped to what, 35. I think it's not too bad, but you got this really nice lumen lighting, right? Okay, so this is something you can definitely maybe work with. Again, as I said, if you really want to push the limits, you probably want to play with the different settings. So if I do the post process volume, right? So this is the place I have global illumination or reflections, right? So I'm using lumen, but also you can change the quality. Maybe I should dial down these numbers in order to get a better frame rate. You can also do global illumination. Again, here you have the settings you can dial down, like lighting quality. Okay, so this is more experimental. You guys have to try to find a good balance. So post-processing, super useful to switch between the different light environment. Okay, so keep in mind lumen is expensive. If you want to use it, I recommend you play with the scalabilities in the command line. Okay, if you don't want to take any risk, want to get a higher frame rate, I want to using these settings. This is exactly the same from mobile VR, which doesn't really give you this nice bouncing light or reflections, but you can achieve a much higher frame per second. Alright, I think that's it about this tutorial.